Good evening, Brendan. How are
Oh,
you?
I'm doing really well, Father. How are you going?
This is Sunday night live from Melbourne, and we're starting now at 8:15 every Sunday night. And the first 15, if
Oh, the joys.
we've got a couple of people who are still watching live on YouTube. Thank you for sticking it out. If you're listening to the podcast down the track, we have had some terrible, terrible internet issues tonight. It must be, Brendan, that everybody is at home on lockdown tonight and they're zooming with their families because the internet is just really not been playing nice with us this evening. And we are obviously doing this from either side of the city because the new changes have come in here in the
Mm.
last little while. So let's just pretend, Brendan, like those first 15 minutes never happened. What did you think of today when you heard that of the new curfew and lockdown that's coming into place?
Oh man, it's a shock. Like I just didn't see it really coming. A couple of whispers that it was gonna come through, but when it hit, and it was pretty surprising actually. Like I didn't think that a curfew was gonna come in. What? How did you find it when you found out?
Yeah, no, the same. Sort of, we'd heard the stuff about supermarkets and sort of like geographical lockdown, perhaps, but the very idea that we were going to be on a curfew in the evenings was sort of something that we hadn't heard of before. So it's an interesting feeling, and I think something when we started this podcast, 15 weeks ago now. None of us really expected or imagined was going to be what was going to happen, but yeah, this is where we're at the moment. So it's going to be a challenging few weeks, and I know that for a lot of people, it's in particular here in Melbourne. There's going to be this great sadness that they can't attend the mass, if you know what I mean, and that they can't attend the sacraments. It's going to be even harder to receive the sacrament of confession. So I know that that's going to be a great pain for people. But hopefully, these Sunday nights, if people can ever find us on the internet after we've started 15 live streams in a row, if they ever find us live, will be a source of consolation and
Mm.
a little bit reprieve, because I suppose we've always wanted these to be a little bit light and a little bit encouraging, both for people in the way of their faith, but also in life in general. So I think one of
Mm.
the easiest ways to sort of get away from our life is to think about those places where we possibly could be or where we would like to be, which I think leads us into your top five tonight, because I'm quite excited by this. Top five cities that you would go to if you weren't on lockdown. Great choice. So I'm really keen to hear what your top five are.
Well, hey, when you're stuck at home and you're at home, you got to dream a little bit. You got to dream about. I don't know about you guys if you've got lists of things that you'd like to do when restrictions kind of come down, but this is now a list that has been created. It's top five. I said places that I'd like to visit, places I'd like to go when things allow it. Primrose has put in the comment Rome, and Williams put in Vatican City.
Great
Yes,
choice. Great choice.
excellent choices. However, I'm very fortunate to say that I was able to go last year, only for 3 days.
This time last
Um,
year.
this time last year, yeah, about a month ago, a year and a month, something like that. But amazing. So yes, definitely Rome would have been on my top five if I hadn't already gone before. So I made this list a little bit, places I haven't gone before that I really
Okay.
would like to go.
And like,
So
is it as usual? Number
five to
two,
one,
and
5 to 1.
it's in sequential order.
Yes, but no. Number one is number one for a reason. Everything else,
It's
like you
just
can mix and match.
okay. Number five.
Number five. See, this is a country. It's not a city, so I apologize. New Zealand.
Yeah. Okay. Great
Yeah,
choice.
because Lord of the Rings, The Hobbits. It's a beautiful country, and
Have you been
but
there before?
no, never. So
No.
I've never been before. But I've heard that Tasmania is similar, but just like a discounted version.
Hey,
But
see, I'm normally the one who says stupid things that get us in trouble, but I think you've just sort of started
No, I've
tonight.
said that quite publicly. Tasmania is a discounted New Zealand. I haven't gone to Tasmania before, so I'm saying that with zero authority. And sorry to anyone who's listening if you're from Tasmania.
I have been to New Zealand, and I can vouch for its natural beauty as a place to go and visit. So, Air New Zealand, if you want to sponsor our podcast, we're always looking for sponsors. But yeah, no, I can strongly endorse New Zealand as a place to go. Okay, number 4.
Okay. Okay, let's skip over the New Zealand accent that I was just about to attempt. Number 4.
I'm saving you.
Thank you. You're saving the podcast, really. India.
Wow,
Is
okay.
number 4. I think Bombay is a city in India.
Yeah, they make
It's not. I don't think it is.
they make gin, don't they?
I think someone said Bombay needs to be on the list. Jerry, is Bombay in India?
Yeah, I think you might be playing to the crowd here, Brendan.
Bombay. No, hold on. Okay, this is the reason why I'd pick India. Mumbai is
cool.
India.
Aluko Rose has said Tokyo would be a place to go.
Just you wait. Was it a Lokwe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just you wait. The reason why India's on the list is because I'm 1/8 Indian. What can I say?
What can you say?
It's true. 1/8 Indian. All right. Number 3. And also, I'm going to not do an Indian accent here as well.
Please don't. I don't want you to offend your own people.
Oh, what do you mean offend? You mean connect with my heritage?
Okay, number 3. Right. Before we really break the internet.
Okay, number 3. There's a song. There's many songs about this city. I want to see if you can guess it. It's an American city.
That's New York.
So many songs, so many movies.
New York.
Yeah, New York.
Yeah.
Why? Because I feel, when I think of America, I think of 2 places. I think of New York, and then I think of Texas.
Yep.
As just the 2 places that encapsulate encapsulate America.
Well, New York's on my list actually, so I've got.
Oh, good.
So we could go together once the pandemic's over, perhaps. I suppose I was in America at the start of the year and had to come back early, if you remember. So I feel like I've got a bit of unfinished business there. So, but New York was a really great city, and I never thought I'd like it, actually. For many years, I sort of thought, I'm not really interested in going. But I was lucky enough to live there for six weeks in New York. So, and feel like I only sort of scratched the surface a little bit. So, yeah, New York is on my list as a place that I want to go.
I'm very glad to hear that. Because it feels like I was worried that it's like one of those cities that everyone dreams about going to, but then they go to it and it's actually really underwhelming because there's not much to do.
Yeah, but it's the complete opposite. So
that's so good.
If you like cities, if you know what I mean, I like cities. I know that not everyone likes big cities. It is noisy and full of people. Like it really is a city that doesn't sleep. Like it's quite an amazing. And I was lucky enough to stay in a parish sort of right in the heart of Manhattan, and just the noise all day and all night, and the people on the streets. It's just, and like every shop and every cafe is always full. So one of the strangest things at the beginning of sort of lockdown and the pandemic was looking at footage of New York with nobody on the streets, because it's just completely the opposite to what my experience was only sort of like 4 months ago. Wow. So, okay, so you've got New Zealand, you've got India, you've got New York.
New Zealand. India. New York. No. What's an American accent? Moving on. Tokyo. No, that's Korea. Okay, that's Korean, right? I don't know. But I picked Tokyo because I wonder. Asia is fascinating, but I feel like Tokyo encapsulates all of Asia. Like, I don't know if I can say that, but it looks like an incredible city. The lights.
Yeah.
The advances in technology.
Yep.
I don't know much else about it.
Yep.
But I've heard that it's great. Video games and like the whole gaming culture over there. I don't really play many video games anymore, but back in the day, Tokyo I knew was why am I going to say the Mecca of gaming? It's the Jerusalem. It's the Holy Land of gaming. If that's not wrong for me to say.
Okay, I think there is not one sort of ethnic or racial group that you haven't offended this evening with your accents. So let's just keep rolling. Number one's number one for a reason.
Number one, I've already mentioned. Oh, sorry, Clara. Krakow would have been really good. Seoul would have been amazing as well. But number one is Jerusalem, the holy city. How could I not say?
Yeah. For
many reasons, but the main one being that my Lord and Savior 2,000 years ago was there.
Yeah,
that's a pretty big good reason, and I'd like to follow, see where he was, to walk those same streets.
Well, do you know what, Brendan? That's top of my list as well. So we might have to organise a pilgrimage or something, sort of once we come out
around
of lockdown.
The world. What?
New Zealand, New York, Jerusalem.
Sunday Night Live from New Zealand, and we have to only do it in New Zealand accent.
Okay, yeah, that's not going to happen.
And we'll bring Leighton with us as well.
Okay, so Brendan's top 5 countries or places to visit: New Zealand, India, New York, Tokyo, and Jerusalem. My top 3 would have to be, so I said New York, the Holy Land. I've never been, and I'm really, it's one of these things that I'm starting to sort of go, it's time. I need to go, from what everybody says about it. And we might have a quick chat about that later in the show as well. But also, come on, Brendan, if I was going to pick one city, what would it be?
Of course. Wait, so hold on. You've already said Tokyo.
No. I said New York.
Said Holy Land. New York. And then, come on, Santiago
de Compostela, exactly.
So, has to be. Where else?
Yeah, it has to be, for me, the burial place of St. James. Obviously, I've been there so many times, but it's actually, I think it's one of those places that, because I've been there 6 times now, like, I know it. And I think everybody should have an overseas city, or it doesn't even have to be overseas, but somewhere else that you know almost as well as you know your own home. And there's something really nice about sort of knowing it really well. So not to mention that you obviously then have to walk there rather than just sort of get the bus. So the Camino itself is something that I miss. And it's this time of year. I was sort of a little bit in the doldrums during the week, and I sort of thought, what's going on? Why is this week so bad? And it was because I realised it was so cold and miserable, and I realised, wait a minute, this is normally when we're in Santiago, the Feast of St. James, and it's normally summer. I haven't experienced an Australian July for quite a few years, so I've been really blessed these last few years to walk the Camino. So Santiago would have to be the top of my list. So obviously it's been a challenging time, and it is going to continue to be a challenging time for people who don't get the opportunity to go to Mass at the moment and obviously reflect on the scriptures. So we've obviously been trying each week to have a little bit of a look at the gospel in particular for Sunday. And this Sunday, it's one of those great sort of iconic passages that we know really well, and that's the feeding of the 5,000. But it's such a rich passage that every time we delve into it, there's something new for us, and there's so many things that we can sort of focus on. But this Sunday, I was just really encouraged by it. The gospel begins when we find out that it's occurring just after the death of John the Baptist. So Jesus himself has just heard about his cousin's death. And we remember from the visitation the closeness between Elizabeth and Mary, the Blessed Virgin. So we can only imagine that Jesus would have spent a lot of his childhood with his cousin and growing up. So the relationship between the two would have been very strong. So as he hears of the death of his cousin, one of his closest family members, he would have been like a brother to him. Jesus decides to do what we can all imagine he would have done at that time, is to withdraw to be alone to pray. he's grieving. He's in this probably quite a dark place, if you know what I mean, this really sad place. And this is where the gospel today begins, that Jesus is withdrawing with some of his closest apostles so that he can spend just a little bit of time on his own. Yet the crowds follow him, and he sees that they're in need of healing, and he responds and he heals them. So it's just a really beautiful reminder, and sometimes we can be tempted to feel like the Lord is distant or far from us, or that there's bigger issues for him to have to deal with than perhaps what we're dealing with. But that the Lord is never too far, and he's never too distant. And even in his own lifetime, when he was dealing with his own issues, his own grief, he was still ready to offer healing and peace to his followers and those who needed it. So we can be assured in our own time that God is never going to leave us alone if we're in need of healing and if we come to him. So there's a great encouragement at the beginning of the gospel, but then as we go through, we then of course have this account of the apostles presenting to the Lord the need for food. So the apostles, the early church, identified that there was a problem, but they didn't know the solution. And this is a really wonderful sort of lesson for us in prayer, because sometimes the temptation is to go to prayer thinking that we have to have it all and have it all sorted out. But the apostles show us time and time again that this is not the case. They just present to the Lord that we have no food. It's a lonely place. The day is now gone. Send the crowds away to the villages to buy food. And Jesus says they need not go away to get something to eat. And the apostles say, well, what have we got? We only have 5 loaves and 2 fish. It's not enough to feed all of them. Yet with this measly offering, Jesus takes it, blesses it, and gives it to the crowd, and there's more than enough. There's an abundance. 12 basketfuls over, St. Matthew tells us. And again, it's a really wonderful lesson for us that with our own small offerings, if we come to the Lord and we say, this is the problem, we don't know what's going on, we don't have to have the solution, we just present ourselves before the Lord and we present to him what our needs are, Jesus is then going to say to us, well, what do you have to fix this? What do you have? What can you offer? And whatever it is, no matter how insignificant we may feel, no matter how small we may feel, no matter how broken we may be, if we're willing to let the Lord use us and use our gifts and use our talents and use what we have to offer, then he will take it, he will sanctify it, he will bless it, and he will use it for his good. And if he does, and if we play our part in that, then there'll be enough for everyone. And I think that's just a real encouragement for us at this time, because I think when we look at the world and the times that we live in, there's big problems. I don't know about you, Brendan, but sometimes I just sit there at the end of the day and just go, like, what next? Like, how can this get any worse? And we don't have the solutions for all of them. And I think this is one of the challenges of the world that we live in at the moment, is that because we don't have all the solutions, we start to get a bit panicky, and we start to get a bit depressed, and we start to get a bit worried. But Jesus reminds us in the gospel today, you don't have to have the solutions. In prayer, we just place before him what our problems are, what the challenges are. And then from that, he's going to ask of us. And this is the other reason that we sometimes avoid prayer, is because he's then going to ask something of us. And he's going to ask, well, what have you got? And even if you don't think it's much, if we're willing to give it to him, he's going to be able to use that. So I found a lot of consolation in this Sunday's gospel, especially for the current times that we're living in. Brendan, there's one thing I know that you have, and it's probably a little inconsequential, and you might feel that it's a little imperfect, but I'm sure if you offer it to the Lord, he's going to do something amazing with it, and that is your cello playing skills.
Look,
How's it going? I noticed that they're propped up in behind you.
yeah, well, it's in view sight now. So whenever I swivel around in this swivelly chair, I go, oh, I can't avoid it. Oh,
There it
and I
is.
pick it up in my hands and I leave it there because I embarrassed myself enough last week showing off well, I was joking a little bit. But the Lord, no, you're right. Hey, if I give him my 3 notes on my cello, he can make a bark out of me. He can make a cellist. There's a cellist inside.
A dog bark or a
No,
tree
a
bark?
John Sebastian bark.
Okay.
So,
But we are. Sorry.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna that it is a beautiful gospel, and it's a very, very applicable gospel for us especially as young people, because and in multiple circumstances, I think that a lot of people, a lot of young people as well, we feel like we don't necessarily have many talents or skills, and especially if you're looking for work, or if you've just gotten out of uni and you're looking for work, if you're in that situation, you can kind of go like, all I've got is a degree. I don't have all this experience that's being asked of me. The world can ask a lot of us, and sometimes all we have is 3 fish and 5 loaves, and it just does not
5.
feel enough.
I think it was 2
Is that
fish,
right?
but go with 3. That's fine.
2 fish? Hey, even less than 3 fish. You only have 2 fish now, and it just doesn't feel like it's enough. But really, it's when you sacrifice it to Christ, as you were saying. That's when it just abundance flows, and it really as a Christian, I think we can all say that we've experienced that before, when we've laid it on the table, when we've just laid it on the table for Christ. He picks it up and he fixes our brokenness. And you can recall, I'm sure all of us can recall, some time in the past where that's happened, and it's just kind of this time and time again where we realize, like, Lord, I'm holding all of these things in. I'm holding too tight to my 2 fish and 5 loaves, and feeling like I need to fend off other people from taking my 2 fish and my 5 loaves. But there's so much need out there, and Christ is just saying, go and feed my people. And you're like, but how? And he's like, give all that you have to me, everything that you have, and I'm gonna times that bad boy by 1,000 plus. So, and it's his divine will. He really, the way that he's working through us, if we submit our wills to him, he's working in ways that we're not even aware of, that we might not even find out one day until we're in heaven. So every act of kindness and every little sacrifice is so worth it. And it's not ever going to be fully realized until we reach heaven.
And I think that's a really great example of that is in our guest for tonight, and hopefully she's still on the line considering all the technological issues that we've had. But we're really glad this evening to welcome to the podcast a young Catholic woman from Melbourne who has done just that, Brendan, who's used her own gifts and talents and has seen them multiply time and time again for the good of the world in which we live. So we're going to cross across now, and last time we tried to do a 3-way cross, the internet broke, but I think we've had all the problems that we're going to have tonight. So big welcome to Thérèse Nichols. Can you hear us?
Well, yes, I can.
Praise God.
Fantastic.
It's good to see you, Thérèse.
What a wonderful blessing. Thérèse, we're really glad to have you on tonight. For those people who don't know you, Thérèse is one of the co-founders and the director of a wonderful charity here based in Melbourne called One Plate. But amongst that, she does lots of other things. But One Plate, Thérèse, can you tell us a little bit about it? Because obviously we've just been talking about today's gospel, which is really about the feeding of those in need, and that's part of the wonderful mission of One Plate is providing sustainable food projects to people in impoverished situations. So can you tell us a little bit about how it all came about in the beginning?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much for having me on Sunday Night Live. It's such a pleasure and honour to be here with you both. I love that scripture of the feeding of the 5,000, and it's so relevant to One Plate. So it's quite quite providential and beautiful to be able to speak about One Plate tonight with that gospel in mind. But One Plate actually started 5 years ago. I went to Manila on a trip just for 4 weeks to volunteer at a foundation that cares for street children. And it was whilst I was there, there was a particular foundation. Every Saturday, they welcome 500 children off the street, not 5,000, 500, which is still a lot. And they feed them. And they just don't feed them. They put on a party and they bring in games. And these children, they don't go to school. They eat whatever they can throughout the week, eating scraps out of rubbish bins in the gutters. But this one day a week, they're welcomed into this foundation where they're given clean clothes. Sometimes they'll have dentists come in and do health checks and all sorts of things. And then they feed them. And I thought it was going to be like a soup kitchen where all the children would stand in a big line with their bowls and get served rice. But actually what they do is they clear the whole area. It's not a big area. It's just a concrete floor with a tin roof. They clear it out. The children go on the other side of the gate and they transform this room into a dining room. And they set tablecloths, and every table's set beautifully with knives and forks and a cup, and they decorate with flowers. And I was helping set the tables up, and then I went around the back to help with the food and thinking it was just going to be these massive pots of rice and the kids would be in their line getting their serves. But what they actually do is they plate up every meal individually, like a work of art, 500 plates. And so I was in charge of putting the tomato sauce on the chicken and salad, all rice, all sorts of things. And so I was putting the tomato sauce on, and one of the volunteers came over and said, oh no, I was doing it like that. And he said, oh no, do it in a smiley shape or a heart because we want the children to feel loved. And it was that moment, it just struck me so much of how much love they put into every single plate, and to show these children, give them dignity, to show them love. And for me, it would be easy just to set it up like a soup kitchen, but it was every single one plated, and they've been doing that for 20 years every Saturday. And these children, suddenly they come in and there's just this quietness, and they sit up a little bit straighter and they're eating, and they're treated like little kings and queens. And it's the only time in that whole week that they eat a meal on a plate. The rest of the time it's in plastic or in the garbage bin. And so it shows something we take for granted of the plate, the dignity of the plate. So it was whilst I was there in Manila that I started thinking back to our food culture here in Australia, of how we love going out for breakfast and brunch and lunch and dinner, and we're living in this golden age of food. But I was thinking we shouldn't feel guilty about that, because it's actually a beautiful part of the Australian culture, celebrating food, going out to restaurants and cafes, and we appreciate that more now than ever. That builds culture, it builds relationships, it builds community, it brings people together. And so I was thinking, how then can we bring hope and celebrate that culture, and at the same time help these children who are starving? So I was actually in adoration in Manila, and I was there in front of the Blessed Sacrament writing in my journal, and it was a Holy Spirit moment, and God gave me the idea of one plate. And I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if we partner with restaurants and cafes? They choose one menu item, and each time that menu item is ordered, $1 is donated to one plate, and we use that $1 to help feed these children. And then developed it a little bit more, and from there we thought it would be great to build sustainable food projects, vegetable gardens, rooftop gardens. So it's actually long-term for these children. And then, so that was 5 years ago. So 5 years on, we've got, I think we're up to 17 projects. We've got projects in the Philippines, Cambodia, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Congo. And all of our projects are to help children who have either been orphaned, abandoned, children living on the street, children who have been trafficked, and children who are child labourers. And it's all about giving them food, but also teaching them how to grow their own food. And through that, they learn wonderful skills of leadership and life skills on patience, that it takes time for a seed to turn into a tomato, and so many benefits of growing your own food. So
Thérèse, 5 years, it's amazing how this project has grown over that time, but it's also changed a lot. Can you share with us a little bit about how, as I suppose a founder and as a director of a project like this, how you've had to discern the Holy Spirit's movement and change and grow with the project over time?
Yeah. It has changed and it's developed, and we've pivoted along the way. And I've always felt every morning I really pray for the Holy Spirit's guidance in every situation and decision I make, because we don't always get the opportunity. If I'm in a meeting and have to make a decision straight away, not always I can say, oh, excuse me, I just need to just go away for a moment and pray about that. So I'm always really just trusting that the Holy Spirit will speak in that moment, and just entrust that day to God. And there's been so many moments in the last few years where I've gone into a meeting or I've gone into a pitch, and I'm not praying during that meeting, but I've just had this thought from the Holy Spirit, or something's changed, and I just know God's hand is upon it. And so it's been a really important time of actually not over analyzing and over discerning. God, do we go that way? Do we go that way? Because if I kept going and asking that same question over and over, I'd still be stuck in 2015. I wouldn't have started. I think one of the best ways to get clarity is action. And I just love what St. Joan of Arc said when she said, act and God will act. And I really believe that sometimes we need to take the first step and then God will come in and start acting. And, there's been, we make mistakes, but God's there. And so there's been many moments where I one plate, the whole thing is actually just a miracle when I look back and see what's happened. And so one of the ways in relation to your question, Father Nick, is last year, $1 a menu item from a cafe, it's a bit of a drip. Like, it's not like the millions are pouring in. It takes a lot to get $1. And cafes are on a tight budget, and even so more now. Last year I had no idea, but last year I was like, I think we need to start to pivot one plate a bit more, still have our target audience of cafes and foodies and restaurants, but how can we change it up a little bit so that we can raise more money? And so I had this moment. I went to Africa to look at our projects in Kenya and Uganda, and had this moment where I just saw this little 2-year-old boy who totally just broke my heart. And I just thought, there's thousands of these children out there, and if we actually want to make a bigger impact and help more children, then we actually need to really take one plate to the next level back in Australia, to be able to raise more money. But also, one plate isn't just about raising money, it's also about showing hope. So people shouldn't feel guilty. It's about hope. It's about the lessons of love that these children have to teach us here, and that what we have here in life is an absolute blessing, and to be grateful for it, not to feel guilty about it. So I came back from Africa gung-ho. I was like, right, what are we going to do? And so the idea of the cookbook, a cookbook came up. So basically the cookbook. Do you want me to go into that?
Oh, yeah. Before you go into the cookbook, though, I suppose one of the challenges, and I think of the current pandemic, is that, and rightfully so, our attention focuses in on ourselves and our own communities at the moment, especially when so many local businesses and families are struggling under the hardship. But I suppose one of the challenges is that it then pivots our mind away from some of these other needy causes and other things that continue in the world apart from COVID-19. How important is it that we continue to look beyond, I suppose, our own situation, both for us, but also for these needy communities around the world that you've been working with?
It's so important, and I think we've grown up in a culture where we're nearly desensitized to it. That we see these images of what people put out there of these children on the other side of the world who are starving, and unfortunately, we have become desensitized. We're like, oh, that's on the other side of the world, and we forget And Australia's a bit insular like that. Europe's got a different perspective, but I think in Australia we often think, oh, the people in our own backyard, and we just think of Australia, and we don't have that as a global perspective in terms of helping and giving. And I think a good way to look at it is these children that we're helping, they are in our own backyard, because it is one world. And looking at the situation of what others are going through does help us become selfless and helps us to look outward and to see that our situation, everyone's going through something. Everyone's carrying some sort of cross, no matter where we are, whether we're living in Melbourne or Africa. It's just a different type of cross. But being aware, like, this couple in Manila who run this foundation, they're obviously going, they went through a lockdown, and COVID's gone through all the slums, and it's horrendous. Like, so they don't have any of the medical equipment. But they have worked around the clock putting these meal kits together, going out into the slums, giving out food packages, healthcare packages. It's extraordinary to see. And I think, it's really important to have a perspective beyond ourselves and to see that, we might be locked in our tiny homes or apartments here, but we actually can make a big difference in the world just by being at home. And some of those ways we can do that is there's a lot of people in our own area who are suffering, you could deliver a care package, or this could be a time where you actually may feel that this is your time to actually receive, be nourished, so that when you're out of lockdown, you're ready to just go out and give.
One of my favorite memes at the moment is something along the lines of your grandparents' generation or your great grandparents' generation were asked to save the world by going into the trenches. You're being asked to save the world by sitting on the couch and watching Netflix. You're going to be okay. I suppose it could also be extended to you can save, or you can cure world hunger, or at least go some way to helping starving children by cooking brunch. Tell us how, by supporting One Plate and your new cookbook, we can help in the great mission that you're doing by cooking everybody's favourite meal, brunch.
Brunch. Melbourne is known for its brunch. It's a thing, as everybody listening knows. So basically, last year I worked with an amazing photographer, and we signed up 100 of Melbourne's best cafes, and they gave us their favourite brunch recipes. We went around Melbourne photographing it, and we basically have published a beautiful cookbook called Brunch in Melbourne. I've got it here. Brunch in Melbourne, with 100 cafes, and you may not be able to go out for brunch now to sit down, but you can create brunch at home. So 100% of the sale of this book, it costs $60, and 100% of that $60 goes directly to our projects overseas. We had an angel donor. Well, last year we had a Kickstarter campaign. So some people who actually are listening to this probably contributed to our Kickstarter campaign. So thank you to everyone out there. That funded the first print run. We launched this in May, in the middle of lockdown, and I couldn't believe it, but we sold out within 2 months, 2,000 copies sold like that. And then we got a second print run and had an angel donor who actually funded the full second print run. And they just arrived on Friday, and I was in the warehouse yesterday packing them. So we're hoping to sell out of another 2,000, because it's a great way to support cafes, to keep the spirit of cafes alive. But also projects funding sustainable food projects for these kids. And I think for us, it's a story. It's meant to be a story of hope. It's not feeling guilty. It's like celebrate food, enjoy food, and read the beautiful stories of these children, because they've got so much to teach us as well.
Thérèse.
Yeah.
No, go for it.
I was just going to say, like, everybody, just to add something that you were saying before, Brendan, that everybody's got some sort of skill, and you may not think it's anything, but One Plate has been built on the extraordinary generosity of people's time and kindness and their skills. So we've had accountants who have given their time to help with the finance, or website developers, or a graphic designer, or a travel agency that donated flights. Like, everybody's got something, as small as it might be, packing books in a warehouse, whatever it might be. And that has all built One Plate, which has helped these kids. And there's so many ways to help people in the world. It's just not about helping starving children. Like, One Plate's so much more than feeding children. It's about feeding their souls. It's about bringing hope and light. And I truly believe in these times where we are fed with the pandemic of everything and this fear mongering, and we see that there's so much darkness. Well, it's sort of exciting because the light shines greatest in the darkness. And I just want to encourage everyone, whatever's on your heart, there'll be something that will pull you, and whatever that is, there's something that you can actually do about that, whether it's time, or whether it's tithing, or whether it's doing some design work for that charity, whatever it might be. And for me, like, ever since I was little, it's always been children who are suffering. I've always wanted to do something, and I didn't know how. And I'm not a farmer. I don't know much about sustainable food projects, but, God just put this idea in my lap, and I just believe that if I said no, he would have asked somebody else. He's basically just looking for people to say yes, not necessarily people with talent, because I'd never started anything like this. I didn't really have the talent, but you learn as you go.
Thérèse, I remember I'll go down in history as the person who sort of went, yeah, One Plate, because I remember having coffee with you maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and you first sort of pitching the idea of One Plate, and I'm there going, here's just another sort of crazy crackpot idea. Good on her. This is going to be great. But look at it. Look at what it's become, and it's a really wonderful thing. What if there was a young person out there right now who's sitting there? They've got the next 6 weeks of lockdown, and they've got a dream, something like this, like a kernel of an idea. If you had one piece of advice to give them about making it a reality, what would it be?
Start, and don't question the idea. Just start beginning by the first step. Write the idea down and talk about it with somebody else. And there'll be many people who will tell you that it's not worth doing, and give you 1,000 reasons of why.
Like me.
So many people, 1,000 people told me, well, not 1,000, many people told me that the cookbook market is saturated. You won't be able to sell cookbooks. There's so many cookbooks out there. But it's a cookbook that's different. It's impact, it's purposeful, it's got stories in One Plate in it. There's different ways. Like, you might have an idea that you feel like it's been done 1,000 times, but you just add a different element. But my advice is that this next 6 weeks, as hard as it is going to be for many people, and I really feel, for families, and it's going to be hard, but if you're a young person who's got some time and you're like, oh my gosh, another 6 weeks, I'm going to be bored, I just really encourage you to change your mindset and just embrace these 6 weeks. You will never get a time like this again where you won't suffer from FOMO over the next 6 weeks. You won't have to make any decisions about, should I go there or there? You can completely get into your creative zone and start creating, start imagining, and really seek God during this time and ask him, what is it that what is that new fresh vision that he's putting on your heart, and go with it. Don't be afraid. It doesn't matter how young you are. It doesn't matter if you don't have the skills, because if you tap into a passion and that vision, then that's what's going to carry you, that passion and that vision, more so than skill.
We're never quite sure, Thérèse, when I call you, where you're going to be in the world. You're one of the busiest and hardworking people I know. So how have you coped with lockdown and being sort of stuck in one place and not being able to go and visit these great projects that you're working with, and to dream and create and be so busy? How have you dealt with sort of the struggles of the last couple of months? So
for those who know me, you would think I'm a bit of an extrovert. I always thought I was an extrovert, but since lockdown, I'm like, I think I'm an introvert. I personally have loved this time. I have learnt so much. It's been a time of great growth for me, learning how to be and not do. And I've been reading this book actually, Father Jacques Philippe, Searching for and Maintaining Peace. And it's I know it's so cliche about the busyness, and it has been like that. And I don't want to be a busy person. I want to have that slow living, because I believe that's where creativity flows, and that's where I hear God's voice the most. But for me, when you were talking before about Santiago, my place is definitely France. Like, that's one thing I'm really, besides the sacraments, it's Europe. And part of the reason that I love Europe for 100 different reasons, but one of them is often when I go to Europe, I get new ideas, and my imagination, my creativity starts to flow. And I think that's partly because I'm just being completely present in the moment. And so here in lockdown, I feel like I'm in my own little Parisian apartment, and I'm just using this time to be still and to pray and to listen and to create and dream and seek fresh vision and new ideas. And it's an absolute gift of just stillness. I love it.
Is there something new that you've picked up? I'm learning the cello at the moment. Are you learning anything new at the moment?
I am. I'm trying. Well, I used to play the piano, so I'm trying to get back into the piano. And I did the cliche ISO challenge of making sourdough bread.
Oh, good.
Like everyone else doing.
Good.
Which has been good.
I'm learning to cook at the moment. Have you got at the moment? Do you consider yourself a chef? You made a cookbook, so I feel like you must be. Have you got any tips?
Slow cooker. I'm all about slow cooker. I love a slow cooker.
Slow cooker?
If you don't have a slow cooker, go and buy one. It's perfect in the middle of winter. You put all the ingredients in and it cooks.
Oh, seriously? Okay, good. Done.
You taught us during the week, Thérèse, a new word. It's Danish, Dutch. It's one of those things. Is it a word, or is it a piece of IKEA furniture? Hygge. Hygge. Talk to us.
It's not a new age word. Hygge is a Danish word. It's a Scandinavian word. It's not translated into English, but it actually is all about lifestyle. So Hygge is the way Danish people live in terms of slow living. It's all about warmth, ambience, hot beverages, drinks, fire, red wine, wool, reading books. It's like they embrace it in the middle of winter, just to like slow, calm lifestyle. Hygge. So I'm totally living Hygge at the moment.
That went beyond. That sounds like a Pinterest post waiting, like a Pinterest pinboard waiting to happen.
So I suppose there's probably two approaches to ISO, and I suppose as we're starting tonight, we've got another 6 weeks of this here in Melbourne, and it's probably even more restrictive, if you know what I mean. Even for those people who like to go for long walks or bike rides, we're now going to be restricted to our suburbs. For those of us who have been multiple times to Bunnings in a given week, just because it's one of those appropriate places to go, that's probably going to be taken from us as well. Like, entering into this next 6 weeks, we can either sort of, I suppose, bunker down and sort of surround ourselves with Hygge, or I suppose the other option is, of course, especially for us as Catholics, as people of faith, sort of looking beyond, and sort of this idea of reaching out and casting our gaze beyond, I suppose, the current challenges and struggles. It's something I know that you're good at, and obviously Father Jacques Philippe, who I know you read quite regularly, and you introduced me to his works, but he speaks a lot about this as well. Have you got any advice for a young person who might be struggling to sort of find that supernatural outlook in the current environment?
I think it's really important for us to never forget that to live now in the light of eternity, that this isn't home, that we're just passing through, that this is actually preparation for heaven, and to keep our eyes on heaven. We Christians we don't put our faith in the world. So when everyone else around us is falling apart because they've put their faith in the world and suddenly the world's changing, we should be able to maintain that peace because we've put our faith in God and we know that heaven is our home. We're striving for heaven. So I find personally when I look up, I had it written in Clearview. I put it in my room. So every time I wake up in the morning, I see it. It says, lift your gaze to heaven. That it's so easy for us to get caught up in, the little nitty-gritty things that actually become a big thing in the moment. But actually, at the hour of our death, we're not going to be thinking about who said that or, how whatever happened in the pandemic. We'll be having our eyes on heaven going, my gosh, I hope I make it. And so I think living in the light of eternity now and knowing that life's a temporary assignment and praying to see the world through heaven's eyes actually starts to shift our perspective. And suddenly we don't allow the fear of what the world is feeding us. We are able to sort of rise above that and go, well, we're made for heaven. And I think it's always keeping the two in balance of dreaming and creating and making sure that we're contributing to the world and being a light, yet at the same time not being so attached, knowing that it's heaven and keeping that perspective.
I wonder also whether, and this is the challenging sort of thought I have, because each time here in Melbourne, sort of we go forwards and then we go backwards and then we go forwards and then we go backwards. And we can either look at it like the Lord's punishing us, or we can look at it like he's giving us another opportunity, that we didn't get it quite right the first lockdown. He gave us this really wonderful opportunity to do what you were saying, and we didn't get it quite right. So, and we were saying a few weeks back, sort of as soon as we got given some of our freedoms back, how quickly did we sort of throw away some of those lessons that we'd learnt in the first lockdown. And then we get the second lockdown and perhaps we didn't learn the lesson that he really wanted us to learn. So he's giving us this new period of 6 weeks to really sort of teach us something, and teach us how to trust in him alone and to trust in the promise of heaven, and that the suffering that we endure and the challenges of this life will only be temporary, and that the only way that we're actually going to get through this next 6 weeks, let alone the next few months, is by being able to remember to keep our gaze fixed firmly on heaven. And as we see in the gospel today, if we're able to do that, if we're able to trust in the Lord, and give him our gifts, and give him this time as a gift, if you know what I mean, he's going to be able to do some amazing things with us. Thérèse, we're almost out of time. We've been asking all of our guests this over the last couple of weeks about something that you've learned about yourself during lockdown, and you've given us a few things, but is there anything else, final pearls of wisdom, pearls of great price, you'd want to leave with the young people of Melbourne tonight? Speechless. Or frozen.
The internet is a wonderful thing. That's a pearl. That's a pearl to take away with you.
I'm going to take that shot off the screen because she's going to be absolutely mortified by that. That's amazing. Just when we're coming to an end, the internet's decided to freeze on Thérèse. Poor Thérèse. Oh no, she's back. Wait a minute. Let's go. Here we go. You have to watch that one back, Thérèse, because that was really funny. So your pearl of great price before we say goodbye.
Oh, one of the things I've been reflecting on lately is about knowing is not growing. That during this time we can be reading a lot and listening to a lot of podcasts and absorbing a lot of great content and a lot of Catholic conferences worldwide. Like there's been so much available, and I've been listening to a lot of these amazing speakers because suddenly it's all available. And it's easy just to absorb, but not actually action it. So I think that whole knowing's not growing, that we actually need to actually learn and keep learning, but turning that into growth to actually keep moving forward. We should never stop growing. So, and often it's not what you know that creates impact in the world, it's who you are. And that knowing you have to actually convert to growing. And yeah, so it's been a time of going deep into that self-awareness. So
thank you so much, Thérèse, for all the wonderful work that you're doing and for being with us tonight and to sticking through the technological issues. Brendan's put in the comments the website, but if you're listening later on in the week, it's oneplate.co, C-O. And I just really commend it. I commend the book to our listeners as well. It's a real wonderful way of supporting the great work of One Plate. Thank you, Thérèse. And yeah, we wish you all the best with the next 6 weeks with your Hygge and the wonderful. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of other wonderful ideas and great work for the church and the world that's going to come out of this time for you. So thanks for joining us tonight.
thank you both so much for having me.
Cheers. God bless.
Thanks, Thérèse.
Thanks, Brendan. Well, we almost got there in the end, but just before we wrap up, just a few plugs. And as Thérèse mentioned, sort of this time is a really wonderful opportunity to continue not just to grow in your knowledge of the faith, but also in your relationship with the person of Christ. And just because we're locked out of our churches and away from the sacraments doesn't mean we can't continue to grow. So I just want to give a really quick plug to a couple of programs. Brendan and I were at the first session last Wednesday. Each day sort of rolls into the same. What night are we doing?
Tuesday.
Is it Tuesday? Tuesday nights, Unlocking the Mystery of the Bible. So you really are welcome to join us. It's a 7-week program looking at the scriptures, but not so much at the scriptures themselves, but at the person who has given us the scriptures. So really entering through the scriptures into the life of the Blessed Trinity and building that relationship with Christ. So a really wonderful opportunity. And although you might have missed week 1, it really actually only starts on week 2, so not too late to join us for Unlocking the Mystery of the Bible. But also just a real invitation as well to those of you who might be getting a little bit sort of tired, I suppose, of live streaming masses on a Sunday. If you're just wondering whether or not there's something more that you can be doing to stay connected with the life of faith as part of that Sunday morning experience whilst we can't get to Mass, I'd like to invite you to consider joining us for this program on Sunday mornings called Jesus, the Way, the Truth and the Life. And we're just going to play a really quick promo so that you can get a bit of a taste for what it's all about.
You guys have done some pretty awesome studies over the years. Biblical walk with the Blessed Mother, the great adventure, you know. What I'm excited about is working together with both of you on a series that focuses simply on the person of Jesus and on his entire life.
So many of us know about Jesus from our childhood. We've heard stories about Jesus giving the Sermon on the Mount or teaching the Our Father, curing some lepers. But how do we put it all together? How do all these different stories of Jesus' life fit into the one overarching story of his mission as the Messiah and coming to save the world? And when you go onto the land of Jesus and you're right there, it changes you, right? I mean, all of a sudden, you're there at the shores of the Sea of Galilee. You're seeing the Capernaum where his home base was. You go to Jerusalem. This is where he lived, and this is where he died, and he did it for me.
Everybody who goes along with us will catch a new vision inside of what it means, not just to believe in him, but to follow him. And when you are in Capernaum, and you're in Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Nazareth, you say to yourself, I can follow this guy. I can not only follow him, but I can become like him. And that's really what my prayer is for everybody that joins us.
And I think it's just going to change everything about the way you live your life. It'll change the way you approach the Mass. It'll change the way you pray the Rosary. You know, they call the Holy Land the fifth gospel. And so now all of a sudden you actually can visualize. And all of a sudden, all those stories of Jesus become very real. And you've got a picture in your mind that you can take with you for the rest of your life.
So that starts this coming Sunday at 9:30, and it's a 10-part series, so it'll really take us through the next part of lockdown, but also we can pretty much safely assume that even after we come out of this immediate period of lockdown, that numbers for masses are still going to be quite restricted. So hopefully it's a real way that you can engage with the life of faith and build your relationship with Christ over the next 10 weeks. So all the details for both those programs are available at the Facebook page, facebook.com/Melbourne Praise, and you can jump online and find the details for both of those. Both of them will be conducted via Zoom, so there'll be both the video content, but then also a chance to engage with other young Catholics and Catholics from across Melbourne. The Sunday morning program in particular finishes just in time, 9:30 till 11. So for those of you who do watch the live stream Mass from our cathedral here in Melbourne each and every Sunday, you'll be finished in time for a live stream Mass as well. Thank you, Brendan. Thanks, everyone, for listening. If you haven't already, you can find our podcast on Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. But otherwise, it's been another great week. Once we got through the technological issues, we did the full hour anyway. A big week next week. We've got Sam Clear, a great Catholic. He's a Tasmanian, but we'll forgive him for that. So he's out of lockdown at the moment, but he's going to be sharing with us his own experiences on the podcast. So really wonderful speaker and guest next week. The following week, just a shout out for those of you who are as old as I am, we're going to be celebrating the 20-year anniversary of World Youth Day Rome. But not only World Youth Day Rome, but since then, the 20 years of World Youth Days across that time period. Rome and the pilgrimage to the Great Jubilee year was the first real large-scale pilgrimage that the Archdiocese here in Melbourne sent to World Youth Day. I went myself, but there was a large group of us that went, and since then, really, World Youth Day has become a really pivotal part of the life for young Catholics. So that's in 2 weeks' time, followed by a special guest the following week who's going to be speaking to us about mental health, and in particular looking after our own mental health during lockdown. So lots of great things coming up over the next few weeks. Brendan, enjoy your week at home. Don't go too far.
Thank you, Father. Same to you. Enjoy
And
it.
Hopefully we'll see some of you on Tuesday night at Unlocking the Mysteries of the Bible. Otherwise, we've got Thursday night praise and all the other regular prayers here at melbournepraise.com. But otherwise, have a good week. And God bless you all.
God bless you all. God bless, Father.